Hello everyone, welcome back to the SMITE Khepri Support Joust Guide. This is your host, Professor Reha, back with, of course, Khepri. Now, we're finally able to finish this series because, obviously, I'm capable of playing Joust again, which is always nice. So, let's see what the other two pick. Now, this is something I actually want to mention I haven't really talked about, but in Joust, the current team meta is one tank character, and I use this term very broadly because, generally speaking, this can be either a guardian or a warrior with sufficient enough protections. Obviously, this includes most warriors, but there are a couple of warriors who I would say probably wouldn't really fit the bill for a sufficiently supporty warrior. Odin is kind of questionable depending on how you build him and how you choose to play him. He does function almost like an assassin a lot of the times, so that it really depends on very carefully how you build him. A mage is pretty much required for Joust because you really want that kind of area damage to wipe out the enemy team, and what I quote a duelist. This can either be a hunter or an assassin, although I personally prefer hunters. I have seen assassins work very well in that role. So, I usually prefer guardians for the tank because it does allow you to slightly balance out the damage types here. It prevents the enemy tank from really being able to build full... See, for instance, they actually have a warrior support in Achilles, so I'll be able to emphasize physical protections a little bit more and have an easier time. So I'll be going not with a full... Well, I could still go with a full aura build, but cut out the Heart Ward, because that would only affect Janus. And he's granted very slippery to actually pin down, but if I can get my hands on him, he's probably dead. They're not really going to have enough healing to merit the use of Tainted Steel, and of course I'm not going with Damage Khepri, so we're not using Benevolence. But we're going to rush right into that Sovereignty right off the top, and then we're going to get our shoes, and then maybe Gauntlet of Thebes. If I do, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to commit to the full aura build here. Definitely thinking about it, but I'm not 100% sure. It's really going to depend. Okay, he's going to solo blue. Now, Anubis can do that because he has great lifesteal, which he didn't actually build here yet, and the ability to drop protections and increase his own power, or protections. Oh, we're just going straight for the mana. They're changing it up. Okay, this is just straight up the other start. Alright, we'll chill on the other side here and absorb some experience that way. I don't like this start because it does kind of put us behind experience-wise. Because it's actually painier to go back and do the speed after the mana than it is to start at the mana and then... start at the speed and go to mana. It's somewhat difficult. Yes, you get some early pressure here, but it's often not worth it at all. And he dies. Okay. Which is totally awesome. This is what we want. Why do I feel like it's really quiet for me? Yeah, it's good as it is. There we go. Bring that up to 20. I forgot to increase my own system volume. Why does he have med? That was a good play. That was a great counter play. You are gonna die. My shell saved his stinking life. He shouldn't have been there that long. He doesn't have his lifesteal yet, so he shouldn't be playing as aggressively as he is. I'm surprised he went with the damage, honestly. Danzaburou is not going for the speed. Now, I will give you the truth that, yes, the speed is kind of useless. It basically exists only for farming, and that's about it. There's no real point to grabbing it, because there's no real need for speed in such a small map. I'm very glad the old Joust map is coming back, at least for a season, because that's going to give us more farm in the sides. There's going to be more things you can go for upon winning a fight, which I think is very important. More useful things. Speed, like I said, is somewhat useless in Joust in general. I need to go back, but I want to expend some more mana first. Just have to keep an eye on Janus there. I didn't want him slapping me with anything of significance. Now let me see. I don't really want to build Witchblade because that would only be really important for Artemis. Achilles mostly does ability focuses, so don't really want Witchblade. That would be kind of silly to build at this particular juncture. Not sure exactly how I want to build this. Will I want anti-heal? I'm not sure yet. Achilles obviously has decent amounts of self-heal, but he hasn't actually built up a significant amount. He's not going really ham on it. No one else has built lifesteals, so I'll just be keeping an eye on the situation, see what actually happens. What are you doing, guy? It's not really worth deactivating those, by the way, if you were like, oh, he's intentionally dropping the trap. What are you talking about, Professor? They will fade by themselves as she puts up new ones, because during pretty much any fight that Artemis gets in, she's going to try to throw those down in order to trap an enemy she's actively engaged in combat with. So these aren't that important to remove, unless he accidentally walked into it, which is also possible, but it's not really important to straight up outright get rid of these a lot of the time. Okay. Alright. Does he have his lifesteal finally? He does not. I can't really afford to go back yet, even though I have no mana, because this Anubis is highly aggressive. Can you please play a little safer? You have no escape. The Artemis will absolutely have a field day with you if you make a mistake. Also, he just sits there and eats Janus' abilities. Also, I have got MP5 with my Sentinel's gift here, so that's pretty nice. And very nice, very nice. That was good. With that being said, I can actually go back, because my counterpart on their team, the tank, has died, so I have an opportunity here. By those, save up. Didn't restore all my mana back, but that's fine. What do I want to build next? Gauntlet of Thebes probably would be the best option here, honestly. I mean, the Anubis is actually sitting there, basically letting Janus slap him, so we definitely will have to do something about that. Also, I feel like... that's a good question. I'll have to think about that. I'm not gonna volunteer that item yet, at this point in time. I'm gonna think about this for a second. Okay. And that was fairly inconclusive. Get him, get him, get him. Nice. This team is drastically underestimating what Khepri can do. Khepri can absolutely turn around a Joust game if his allies are paying enough attention. I feel like we can get Artemis. Okay. Okay. What are you doing, guy? Thank you for the cover, Anubis. He probably saved my life there, honestly. Yeah, he almost certainly saved my life there. I appreciate that. Oh yeah, we're gonna go for Gauntlet of Thebes at this particular moment in time. Otherwise, let me see. I may actually get an item that I almost never actually build, which would be Magi's Cloak. I very rarely buy that as a support, but considering both Artemis' traps and Janus' portal, this would allow me to more successfully abduct people, particularly Janus, who is otherwise very difficult to pin down, so it might actually be one of those rare opportunities for me to actually build that and make it extremely useful. Now, it's generally not necessarily a bad idea to build it anyways if you're Khepri, but it provides so little protections that sometimes you need a lot more heft, especially given the high risk involved that is just inherent to Khepri's nature. Yeah? Okay, Danzaburou did not follow me through that. I'll take you. Oh, I did not activate my ult fast enough. I could have. And I think you died. Yes, you do. Come on, then. Yeah? What do you got, punks? I accidentally activated that. I pressed the wrong key. I'm just going to let him solo clear those. Well, actually, that's technically not a solo clear since I'm getting the assist, but I do need the mana. I'm not going to steal any of these kills. These are all his. I need the assists. Actually, a rare opportunity to put an aggressive ward up. I completely whiffed that. That's not hitting. Oops. Actually, the traps here, I'm actually going to take out this one because I know Anubis will back it up. I know I said don't take them out, but honestly, given how my team has been, I'll be mildly hypocritical there. I freely concede that normally you wouldn't want to do that, but I've seen the Anubis. He's going to back right up into that. I just want to prevent that. You know, the ones close to our tower I'm fine with because I can use them to lure him in, but that was about halfway up, so that wasn't really going to be good if Anubis did backstep into that, and he was in line to do so. He's been hanging around. He's hanging around that area right now. It cost me nothing as Khepri because of my health shield. So that would be about. Anytime you have a temporary health shield, it doesn't cost you anything to do so. See, I'm gonna leave that one alone because it's so readily visible, and I've got other things I need to worry about right now. Alright, thank you. Is buying med in Joust a new thing? I have not ever seen this before. Although it's been a couple of days, like literally a couple of days, since I've last... He's trying to... Yeah, I couldn't really stop that because it was the execute. That's not a good situation. He's going back, that's fine. No, you can go back if you want. There's no problem here. Now, the reason why I did not ult the Anubis there, that was an intentional decision, but Achilles has an execute in his ult, which punches right through my ult. So if I ulted Anubis, which is what he was trying to bait out there, which is why he didn't use it immediately, what he was attempting to bait out was my ult, so he could counter-ult, and unfortunately the Anubis wasn't able to create enough distance between himself and the Achilles for me to be able to slip in there and prevent the ult from hitting. I could not slide in between the two of them, so unfortunately in that scenario I just had to watch Anubis die. There was no other there was no other opportunity I had there. That was just too fast. I couldn't react in time. Janus is, as unsurprisingly, being quite the difficult opponent here. Okay. I don't actually know what happened to Janus. There he is. Yeah? See, I can get between them this time, so if I needed to, I could have ulted Danzaburou there. What the heck? Alright, I really honestly don't think that was worth it for him. Alright. It was an interesting play by Janus' part, though, I'll give you that. That was pretty good. The fact that he was able to slip around there and have no one know, that was pretty good. I don't even think he went through his own ult portal initially. He wouldn't have been able to, actually. So how did he go? He must have gone between the tower and the Phoenix somehow. Yeah, that would explain it. Alright. Now keep in mind my absolutely massive HP 5. This is fantastic because it'll allow me to do basically whatever I want at this point and not really have to be too scared of my boy Achilles. Now, despite that, I am still probably going to be building either Mail of Renewal or Stone of Gaia. I'm leaning towards Mail of Renewal for a little bit of extra protections. Now, you may be wondering, why do you keep grabbing Achilles? Primarily because Anubis is a tank killer and doesn't much care about Achilles' measly protections. He's got only Pestilence, which is pretty normal, but the Achilles rightfully fears Anubis. Okay, that I was not expecting. We need to... Ah, my ult wasn't up. Yeah, this Janus is single-handedly going to carry their team. You're not going to be able to kill me. Come on. Absolute weak sauce. Uh-huh. Yeah? What do you got, punk? Oh, I barely missed that. I was slightly too late. Slightly too late. Alright, so we have this. My next move is gonna need to be blink for more aggressive grabs. He just died again, alright. What we're gonna need next, I'm gonna go right in the middle of renewal next. And then after that, I'll probably build some form of mild magic protections. Maybe Genji's Guard. You're going to... Alright, you know what? That's fine. Okay. That's not an important trap right now. Good. Increase abduct there. Keep an eye on what's going on here. Nice miss, Janus, my boy. There you go. Yep. Alright. There we go. I was going to say, if I need to slap him to kill him, I will do it. For Janus, doesn't matter. I'm waiting for the minion wave to show up. There it is. Save my Rising Dawn for the enemy minion wave. Maximize the usage here. Maybe we can take the Phoenix too, I'm not sure. Nope. Denied. Sorry, but no. You are not going to be killing my Anubis again. I'm quite sick of it, to be honest with you. There we go. Uh-huh. Hey, how about you take a hike? How's that sound? I don't care what you do to me. I couldn't care less about what you do to me. I missed that totally and completely. There we go. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. I need more MP5, honestly. Probably need to build Genji's Guard just for the MP5. Yeah. Uh-oh. Nope. Nope. Yeah? Huh. Wish Anubis' ult was up there. Oh, I needed that mana, honestly. Good trap, good trap. I didn't see it underneath the minions. At this rate, we will eventually chip down their Titan. Get him, get him, get him. I'm dead. Or not, apparently. Yep, okay. But they took it right afterwards. I was able to dive for a reason. That's fine with me. Alright. So that was a fairly interesting match. That was rather back and forth. So let's talk about this match a little bit, because that was fairly fascinating as far as Joust matches go. It was a really nice example of a a magical guardian tank versus a physical warrior tank. Now, first I have to thank the Danza for being a legend. So, what actually happened? What was the pros and cons of this, and where exactly, who did what and why did it work? Now, first off, I would never have been able to sustain that long without Sentinel's Gift, which is more important. Sustain isn't a huge deal in Joust, except for the support. Like, if you're a, either of the damage dealers, it's more important for you to be going back consistently and getting the items you need and stuff like that than it is for the support. The support is supposed to be there to make sure you stay alive, but the better the support can sustain, the better able to keep up with their allies they will be, because obviously the longer you're out there getting assist credit, the more experience in gold you're getting, and since you inherently get less experience in gold for assisting than for anything else, it becomes rather important for you to make sure that you sustain as much as possible, or at least to some useful extent, which is generally why, for supports, you will see a certain amount of sustain. Now, how much sustain depends upon the severity of the enemy team. In this particular case, I was able to sustain an abnormally long amount of time because they had a physical tank, which allowed me to emphasize certain items that would give me more sustain. We have HP sustain here, along with some useful protections for my teammates. Magi's Cloak was because I was seeing a problem between Artemis and Janus, preventing me from abducting. They were actually on top of that. Now, is Magi's Cloak an automatic buy against these two? It depends on how aware they are. The Artemis didn't really use her traps in a method that would force me to buy Magi's Cloak, but Janus was. Now, Janus alone doing this wouldn't alone be a threat, but the Achilles had at least some awareness of what I was trying to do, and did attempt to stun me out of a couple of abducts. He was a little too far away most of the time, but he tried. So that was also going to be potential threats. So with Magi's Cloak, you could abduct over the portal, and be able to get Janus quite nicely. The Magi's Cloak was built in this particular match simply because of the combination. For example, Artemis, if she had been more aware, could have slapped the trap down in front of her as she saw me approaching, and could have killed a initiation attempt there and then, and put me in a relatively unpleasant situation, because besides exposing yourself to the danger of an auto-attacker when you abduct an auto-attacker, but now I've also taken the damage from the trap, and also her shots. So this then becomes an interesting problem where even after I abduct her, I'm in a worse position than I normally would be when abducting an ADC, or a hunter in general. So this was really why Magi's Cloak was necessary. This would have been Mail of Renewal, as I was talking about, just to provide my allies with some healing. Janus was slapping, and I wanted something to provide some kind of relief in that way, especially since, the Artemis would easily be able to rack up my stacks there for that. So that wasn't really going to be a huge problem. Pardon me, I had to yawn. I would have sold my boots for Genji's Guard, probably. I wanted a little bit more magic protections for the Janus. I wanted some MP5, and the cooldown reduction would have been supremely awesome. Now, honestly, I thought about, and maybe I should have, I'm not really sure, maybe purchased Shoes of Focus, but that's impossible to tell at this point. Now, the Danzaburou went right into Dev's Gauntlet, which was interesting, strong, definitely, absolutely great pick. Ninja Tabi crits were being worked on. I don't know what this was before or why it stopped being built, but then he stopped to go for Executioner. I think possibly he was having problems killing Achilles, because there was one fight there, if you go back and see it, I think it was about the, let me see, the 11, I want to say it was the 11 or 12 minute mark that Danzaburou got into a scuffle with Achilles while I was there, and he had a really hard time actually damaging Achilles, because at that point Achilles had the Warrior's Axe and the Sovereignty at that point, I believe, or was starting to work on the Sovereignty and was starting to build up that physical protection. I think Danzaburou was having a really hard time punching through that. So I think what probably happened was Danzaburou stopped to build the Executioner, then went back to bring what I assume was either Rage or Deathbringer. The Anubis went with Kronos' Pendant first, Book of Thoth second, Hide of the Urchin third. Now, this is the problem. This is why the Anubis individually didn't do that great. There are a couple of problems with this. First off, Anubis was not utilizing his passive very well. He did not have any lifesteal. Now, Kronos' Pendant first item I've seen work, but generally the next item is Shoes of the Magi for that lifesteal, and then Bancroft's Talon. But Anubis didn't even have shoes at this point, so that was a fairly interesting choice on the Anubis' part. It was basically running a full damage plus splash of protections, but Side of the Urchin was going to give Anubis a little bit of power with Book of Thoth, obviously. So it was very odd, but this is essentially the reason why Anubis had such a hard time, is because Anubis was not utilizing essentially half his passive. So that really shot him in the foot, I think, especially given Achilles being present. Being able to take advantage of lower HP enemies by executing them with his ults is definitely going to be a problem. Now, speaking of Achilles with his ult, he did okay. The Pestilence pickup would normally have been good, but I think this is actually going to sound a little odd, but this is the exact reverse of counter building. Usually you're building Pestilence as a counter build thing for enemy healing. We didn't have enough healing for that. I had a whole bunch of HP 5, and I was providing a certain amount of HP 5 to my allies, but the only one who actually had a legitimate self-heal at that point was Danzaburou with the Devourer's Gauntlet. So when Achilles built Pestilence in this rare circumstance, it was not the best option. This probably should have been Genji's Guard. In my personal opinion, it would have given Achilles some cooldown to be able to activate his abilities more often, and therefore support better, and MP5 to allow him to stay out in the field a little bit longer. And all with, I think, 100 less health and 10 less magic protections. So, I think Genji's Guard would have been a better choice here, just because we didn't have enough self-heal at this time. Anubis was not building any lifesteal, and I think that Achilles assumed that Anubis was either going to build lifesteal or had it already. Clearly neither was true. The Sovereignty was also an interesting choice, considering that only Danzaburou, minions, and towers were going to be affected by this. Yes, there's HP 5 here, but while Sovereignty worked really well for me because they had two sources of physical damage, and Achilles does enough damage where he poses at least some legitimate threat here, him building Sovereignty doesn't make sense because it only was a matter for Danzaburou. Now, what would have been a little bit more specific would have been Midgardian Mail. Would have been a good pickup, or possibly, if he was feeling really aggressive about it, he could have gone Emperor's Armor, or Witchblade if he was really concerned, but I think Midgardian Mail would have been a better pickup. And then Runic Shield, which actually is definitely a really great pickup, probably the best item that Achilles built in his kit so far, besides the Warrior's Axe, which was obviously a good pickup here. So really, so much yawning. So really, Achilles' main issue here isn't necessarily how he played. He played pretty well overall. Actually, Achilles showed a lot of awareness and respect for what I was capable of, my ults, and what his allies really needed. I caught him out a lot, and so did Anubis, but that's kind of his job as a support, is to be out there and make sure that he's trying to set up those things. It's just that Achilles, as a character, is not an inherently great support. Excellent jungler, excellent solo laner, not a great support, because he only really has access to one crowd control and execute, some damage and some self-heal with a rather impressive protections buff, but protections alone do not make a support. So that's really Achilles' issue as a support. I don't usually play him in the support role. I have extensively tested him as a former support main. I've extensively tested him in the support role, but I just cannot get him to consistently work in that role, simply because it's just not something his kit is good at. The Janus did very well because he just full-stacked pretty much pure damage, which allows him to utilize his passive more effectively, which basically just allows him to bust out larger and larger amounts of damage if he's gone over his portals or his line or what have you. Basically, Janus wants as much power as possible. Janus' only real issue was, again, a almost total lack of penetration. Now, I don't really have a huge problem with this build. The Conduit Gem is really good. Evolved Book of Thoth is fine. Shoes of Focus is great. Bancroft's Talon is great and all, but I think this should have probably been something with penetration. He wasn't really hitting me that hard anymore. He was starting to not hit the Anubis hard anymore because of Hide of the Urchin, and Anubis would have been visibly working on this at the time that Janus was making this. So this was something of a bold choice, and then we have very mild penetration. We only have 10 flat, which at this point Anubis definitely had Hide of the Urchin. This wasn't the move. This just wasn't. He needed something with more punch. He needed something with more penetration. And this should have been Obshard, honestly, and then build Spirit of the Magus after that, because you're really not punching through and dealing that much damage at this point, which is why Janus is... You'll notice if you watch the match back, Janus is having something of a bit of a damage output problem, and this is why. He only had 10 flat penetration, nothing else. The Artemis actually, out of all of them, had probably the most interesting potential build. This is obviously going to be the arrow that provides criticals, which is great. Ninja Tabi Aussie, which is a fantastic pickup for a crit build, 15 flat penetration at a pretty good point in the game where it actually becomes useful. Wind Demon, which provides a little bit of physical penetration, increased attack and move speed. This is great. This is probably going to be Executioner, which is okay given her current build. Clashes with Wind Demon slightly, but not enough to make it that important. But this was going to be a great pickup. She recognized that Anubis had the Hide of the Urchin. The only real problem with Artemis is that she's extremely bad against both Anubis and Khepri. And Danzaburou just generally does a good job against most hunters anyways, because as long as he's standing in his bamboo field, he gets less damage from basics. Furthermore, Danzaburou has a couple of interesting tools that Artemis really can't effectively escape from, such as the Saki, which if Artemis tries to run away normally, isn't going to make it out in time if it's thrown close enough to her. So Artemis does not have a whole lot of options away from our pretty much whole team comp. So Artemis's issues were not her build or even her gameplay. Her gameplay was fine. It's just that it was a horrifically bad matchup for Artemis. And this is the real problem with Artemis, is that Artemis has no escape. Artemis has absolutely no way of getting away from you. She has a minor movement speed boost and CC immunity during her ults. That is it. She can't really stop you from killing her otherwise. She can set up a trap and hope you step in it, but honestly, a lot of the times it's pretty difficult to do, is to accidentally step in one of her traps at that point. You're probably already in her face beating on her. So that's really what the Artemis issue was. It was more of a matchup problem than any individual gameplay or build problems. But with that being said, thank you all very much for joining me. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, what have you, please leave them down in the comment section below. I do read them. And as always, thank you very much. Have a great 24 hours.